One minute you're watching Italy's most active volcano puff away like it always does. And the next, the ground on its southeastern flank splits open right across a fault line that hasn't moved in thousands of years. This isn't just another Etna tremble. This is a structural awakening of a prehistoric scar, the same one that once sent part of the volcano crashing into the Ionian Sea. And now, it's back. A 30-meter-long fracture just tore through Mount Etna's side. That might not sound huge on paper, but its placement is everything. This crack aligns precisely with a long dormant collapse line etched into the volcano's foundation during a catastrophic failure in ancient times.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
That line has always been there, buried under hardened lava and volcanic soil. Volcanologists have studied it, mapped it, and worried about it. But today, it reactivated, and that changes everything. This isn't some surface-level stress fracture you can write off as cosmetic damage. According to satellite data, drone footage, and high-res ground sensors, the rupture follows a deep-seated internal fault plane. It's rooted inside the volcano's architecture, like reopening an old wound right through the bone. That plane has been dormant for millennia. Now, it's breathing again. What's worse, the crack didn't come with the usual dramatic seismic buildup. No swarms of earthquakes, no ground-rattling warning signs. Just a quiet, accelerated shift, several centimeters of slope movement measured in real time. That's geological quickness, and it happened under near silence. Scientists aren't guessing. The data's coming in from every angle: satellites overhead, GPS arrays around the volcano, drones capturing close-up deformation, all confirming the same thing: Etna is sliding again. And it's doing so at a fault line with a history of absolute devastation. The timing couldn't be more alarming. In the hours before the fracture opened, slope movement picked up. Not meters, but centimeters, and fast. That kind of shift doesn't happen without a push. And since seismic activity stayed quiet, volcanologists are pointing to a different culprit: magma intrusion. Basically, magma is acting like a hydraulic wedge, pushing apart internal rock layers, slipping between them and slowly prying open space. Think of it like a crowbar wedging open the side of a mountain. That magma isn't necessarily erupting yet, but its intrusion can trigger deformation all the same, especially when it's forcing its way through a zone already known to be unstable. And here's the kicker: Mount Etna is structurally messy. This isn't one solid rock cone. Its body is built from layer upon layer of lava flows, pyroclastic deposits, fractured rock, and ash. That kind of construction doesn't hold together well under pressure. In fact, its southeastern and eastern flanks already slide seaward constantly. We're talking millimeter to centimeter movement every year. That's just part of Etna's normal cycle. But this new rupture isn't normal. It cut through hardened lava, loose volcanic soil, and bedrock, evidence of serious internal strain. And when a crack reopens exactly where a prehistoric collapse once occurred, scientists stop calling it erosion. They start calling it reactivation. Thermal sensors and gas sensing equipment are now being rushed in to scan the area. They're looking for sulfur dioxide, heat anomalies, anything that might show magma is rising into shallow zones. Because if that magma reaches the surface, the fracture could turn into a new eruptive vent. Not at the summit, but on the flank. That's where the risk goes from volcanic spectacle to public hazard. Flank fractures like this one are dangerous in ways most people don't realize. Summit eruptions, dramatic as they are, tend to stay confined to higher elevation zones already mapped, monitored, and generally less populated. But a low elevation flank rupture that puts homes, roads, and infrastructure in the line of fire. These types of failures can trigger landslides, ground collapse, or worse, hydrovolcanic explosions if magma hits groundwater. And Etna's flanks have done this before. History shows that its ancient collapses didn't just reshape the volcano, they reshaped the sea. The last major sector collapse on this side of the mountain sent a huge portion of the volcano tumbling into the Ionian Sea. The result? Region-wide landslides, Mediterranean tsunamis. Right now, there's no indication that another collapse is imminent. But the fact that this ancient structure is reactivating is a red flag volcanologists can't ignore. Italy's National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology (INGV) is officially on high alert. They've launched 24/7 monitoring. That includes satellites tracking every millimeter of surface deformation, autonomous drones flying across the fracture line, GPS stations beaming real-time displacement data, and dense seismic arrays listening for any signs of new stress accumulation. On top of that, civil protection authorities have kicked off emergency scenario planning.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
No evacuations yet, but the plans are in motion. When an ancient failure zone comes back to life, no one waits around. Because here's the terrifying truth. Volcanic systems remember. Structural trauma doesn't vanish. It lingers in the rock, in the grain of fault plains, in the way pressure redistributes. And Mount Etna's southeast flank, it's not just unstable, it's a legacy weakness, where gravitational stress and magma pressure can work together to trigger disaster without warning. In recent months, Etna has already shown signs of ramping up. Strombolian explosions, lava fountains, increased degassing. It's been putting on a show. But this new fracture isn't part of the performance. It's a backstage collapse that shifts the entire stage. Volcanologists believe this may signal a fundamental reorganization of Etna's plumbing system, pressure moving laterally instead of vertically. That would mean magma is choosing new paths, away from the summit and toward the sides, toward the cities. That's not speculation, it's pattern recognition. When magma starts sidestepping the central conduit, it finds weaknesses in the flanks. And this prehistoric scar, it's the ultimate weak spot. Even if there's no eruption, even if magma stalls, the fracture alone poses a risk. Slope instability can damage transportation routes, utility lines, and critically scientific infrastructure used to monitor the volcano itself. If that equipment goes down, the ability to predict or respond to changes drops with it. As the sun sets over Sicily, scientists are watching Etna like never before. Every sensor is feeding live data. Every anomaly is flagged. Every movement down to a single micrometer is logged. This is the most intense period of observation the volcano has seen in years. Because now it's not about whether something's going to happen, it's about how much has already started. And that's what makes this moment so pivotal. Ancient collapse lines don't just crack open because of surface erosion. Their reactivation means something deeper is shifting. Stress fields are changing. Magma is moving. Structural supports are weakening. It's not just about the crack you can see, it's about what's causing it from below. And the implications stretch far beyond this week or this month. This event forces a shift in how volcanic risk is modeled. It's no longer enough to track surface activity and hope for seismic clues. The real danger might be in the quiet deformation, in the inherited structural weaknesses that don't make noise until they break. Models need to adapt to that reality, especially for coastal volcanoes, where a single landslide can ripple across an entire region. Mount Etna isn't just erupting anymore. It's restructuring. So what do you think? Are we watching the early signs of a long-term geological unraveling, or just one more chapter in Etna's chaotic story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay updated as this unfolds, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the next 72 hours could redefine everything we thought we knew about Mount Etna. Etna doesn't move without meaning. That's what volcanologists always say. Every puff of gas, every tremor, every inch of slope creep, it all adds up to something. But this is not business as usual. This is a shift that reopens a 10,000-year-old geological scar like it's nothing. A literal crack across the mountain's history. And now, everything's watching. The scientists, the satellites, the drones buzzing overhead like mechanical hornets. Every camera lens pointed straight at the wound. Because the scary part isn't just the fracture. It's what the fracture represents. It means forces that have been locked deep inside the volcano for centuries, maybe millennia, are now back in motion. That long-buried failure line from a prehistoric collapse. It's no longer a relic. It's active. And when Etna starts playing with ancient fault systems, no one can predict how the story ends. This is where the conversation shifts from surface spectacle to structural reckoning. Because Mount Etna isn't just a fire-breathing cone. It's a giant pile of unstable layers. Basaltic flows stacked on top of ash, pyroclastic debris, and fractured rock. The whole thing is stitched together like a patchwork quilt, held in place by gravity, friction, and hope. Now throw in magma. When magma pushes sideways instead of up, what experts call lateral pressure migration, it starts seeking out cracks, old faults, weak points. And the volcano's southeastern flank. That's where all of those exist. That side of the mountain has been quietly creeping toward the sea for years. Not in meters, but in millimeters and centimeters, a slow-motion slide, steady and mostly ignored. Until now, because that background movement just sped up. Not dramatically, but enough to trip every alarm. Ground sensors picked up rapid displacement without the usual seismic noise. That's huge. It means the slope didn't shift because of an earthquake, it shifted because something inside is pushing it. Magma, fluids, gravity playing its part. And now, the prehistoric collapse line has joined the party. So let's talk about what makes that so dangerous. Volcanoes don't just erupt, they fail. Flank failures are some of the most catastrophic geological events on Earth. We're talking landslides that move entire mountains, tsunamis that cross oceans, new vents opening in places that were never supposed to erupt, and the southeastern flank of Mount Etna has already done that once. Thousands of years ago, a massive section of the volcano collapsed into the Ionian Sea. It wasn't just a geological event, it was a regional disaster. That's the same zone we're seeing reactivated now. And the crack that just appeared, it's not just on top of that structure, it follows it perfectly. This is what has scientists spooked, not because collapse is guaranteed, but because all the signs are lining up. A seismic deformation, accelerated slope movement, a fresh fracture slicing through bedrock, and most critically, it's happening with a complete lack of dramatic surface eruptions. It's subtle, it's quiet, and that's exactly the kind of behavior that makes volcanologists nervous. Normally, eruption forecasting depends heavily on seismic activity. Earthquake swarms, harmonic tremors, deep rumbles that hint at magma moving up through the crust. But here, we're seeing deformation without those classic signs. That throws the rulebook out the window. Because when magma starts behaving like a hydraulic witch slipping between weak layers, forcing the flanks apart, it doesn't need to announce itself with earthquakes. It just moves, quietly, persistently, and sometimes fatally. This is where the tech comes in. We're in a new era of volcano monitoring, and Etna is now basically a real-time experiment in high-stakes observation. Satellites using interferometry can detect ground movement at the millimeter scale. Drones are scanning the fracture line for gas emissions and thermal anomalies. GPS networks are logging the volcano's every breath. It's not overkill. It's necessary. Because if magma is indeed migrating toward the flanks, that could mean new eruptive vents opening far below the summit, closer to populated areas, towns, infrastructure. These aren't the kind of eruptions you can watch from a safe distance. They're fast, low, sometimes explosive, and worst of all, they come with less warning. There's also the very real risk of cascading events. If the fracture widens, and if it destabilizes more of the flank, that could trigger landslides. Not slow erosion, but massive, sudden displacement. The kind that rips apart roads, downs power lines, and sends tons of rock crashing down the slope. And if that landslide reaches the sea, yeah, we've seen what happens. Ancient records show that past collapses at Etna triggered tsunamis that spread across the Mediterranean. That's not theory, that's history. And the same structural fault that caused one of those events is now awake again. If that doesn't give you chills, it should. Of course, not every fracture leads to disaster. The system could restabilize. Magma could stall. But volcanology isn't about guarantees, it's about probabilities. And right now, the probabilities have shifted. What's also being reevaluated is how we even define volcanic risk. For decades, hazard maps have been based on past eruption patterns where lava has flowed before, which slopes have vented gas, which craters have opened. But this new fracture proves that hazard isn't just about the surface. It's about structure, the internal weaknesses, the deep-seated faults, the stress accumulations you can't see until they give way. That's what this moment forces us to confront. Volcanoes don't forget. Their past shapes their present. Structural inheritance isn't just a geological footnote, it's a ticking clock. Etna's reactivated collapse zone is a case study in that reality. And the monitoring going on right now, it's not just about predicting the next eruption. It's about preventing disaster. Because if you're only watching for lava, you're watching the wrong part of the mountain. Let's talk about the human side for a second. The southeastern flank isn't just rock and ash, it's home to roads, observation towers, and towns that depend on early warning systems to stay safe. If those systems are disrupted by slope failure or new vents, evacuation becomes chaotic, fast, and as absurd as it sounds, one of the risks here is underrating the danger because Etna is so familiar. It's Europe's most active volcano. People are used to it erupting. Lava fountains, normal. Ash clouds, expected. But what's happening now isn't normal. It's silent structural failure beneath a ticking mountain. And the fact that it's happening without an eruption should make everyone pay closer attention, not less. So what happens next? That's the question every volcanologist is racing to answer. The next 72 hours will be critical. Will the fracture grow? Will gas emissions spike? Will thermal imaging show magma rising closer to the surface? These are the clues that will shape emergency response, scientific modeling, and civil planning. And while no evacuations have been ordered, contingency plans are rolling out. Emergency meetings, strategic closures, constant monitoring, because once the flank starts slipping, there's no slowdown button. It either stabilizes or it accelerates. The data coming in now could rewrite how we forecast volcanic hazards. It's pushing the boundaries of what we know, what we thought we could model. Static hazard maps don't cut it anymore. The future is dynamic, real-time, structurally aware. And Mount Etna, it just became the world's most dangerous classroom. This is the kind of moment that leaves an imprint on science, on policy, on memory. We'll look back at the day Etna cracked open across a prehistoric fault line as a turning point, not just for Italy, for volcanology worldwide. There's a specific kind of silence that follows news like this, a tense, analytical quiet. The kind where every expert holds their breath, not because they expect an explosion, but because they know something has already shifted, and they're racing to catch up. Right now, that fracture just 30 meters long, but positioned with surgical precision along a prehistoric scar is being dissected from every angle. And the question everyone's asking is brutally simple. Why now? The data points to a slow, seismic process. No jolting quakes, just centimeters of quiet, steady movement. Magma likely moving sideways, not up. Pressure sliding along hidden internal pathways, targeting that old fault like it was marked on a blueprint. This isn't chaos, it's choreography. Except no one's sure who's calling the steps. And what does that mean for the people living around Etna? For the roads, the communication towers, the monitoring stations hugging its flanks, it means vulnerability. This fracture might not spit fire tomorrow, but the fact that it opened at this exact fault zone, after this stretch of magmatic unrest, is more than a coincidence. It's a statement from the mountain. I remember. Geological memory doesn't fade. And Etna just flipped a page in a very old, very dangerous book. That's why the monitoring has kicked into overdrive. Satellites, drones, GPS units, every tool we have is now aimed at this crack. Every moment of stillness is measured. Every twitch of movement is logged. Because if this is the beginning of a new phase in Etna's life, one defined by lateral instability and silent deformation, then the only thing more dangerous than movement is missing it. So stay locked in. This isn't just volcanic drama. It's a potential shift in how we understand collapse, pressure, and long-term risk. Drop your thoughts below. Are we watching history repeat itself? Or has the mountain given us a chance to act before it's too late? Subscribe for the latest as it unfolds. Like if you're tracking this with the rest of us, because on Mount Etna's slopes, the ground is still shifting. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.